Hello everyone, I'm back again. While you've been away, I have took most of the carbon fibre off. There's a strip along here, note the bung there, the top ones. On the cockpit panels, there's always one very tricky one to get to down there. You can get it with an Allen key or an Allen head on a socket and ratchet, which is ideal. Put the side panels off. Now on the side panels, there's one large one that goes into where engine bolt is. Now it's a funny little system. If I can get this side out, bloody bit tight, so I'll show you on the other side. I'm going to take the cockpit off in a bit because there's a couple of bolts that I need to show where they are, which are can be quite tricky to get to. If I can remember rightly, I should know. Yeah, I think you take that one off though. There's one off the other side. Sorry for the delay. In there, pause in there, and then the headlight unit will come off with the cockpit as long as you unplug everything and anything that is attached. You know, like any things that you put power commanders on or anything, if it's attached to any of the panels or the fairings, plastic ties, make sure it's all off. Like I have a few bits, because I've got over the other side, I have, because as I was saying earlier, because it was one of the first models, or what was the first model, we didn't know. So I've got like, not particularly in this order, power commander 5, ignition module, secondary fuel injection module, and a lot of wiring, unfortunately. And also what I've got to disconnect is a plug there, which goes to the pump for me, like my airbox cooler, you know, because I've got that to cool the boost pressure down. And there's the other bolts. Oops, sorry if they came away. Take the nose cone off. And on that as well, you've got two. On either side, where normally the wing mirrors indicators are, where I've put wings on. Now, because of obviously the indicators were on there, wired through there, I have actually wired indicators in to the end here, which I can show you are rather bright, and I have similar ones for the rear, which is normally on the rear number plate hanger. If I turn it on, put the hazards on, you can see how bright they are. Now I had to drill the bar end weights, which I've got an R&G stainless steel one, now titanium one should say. The titanium was quite hard to tap because you have to drill and tap a thread for that to go. But I also put the wires all the way through, and then down through the bar into the switch gear, and then along the switch gear into the loom, so you can't see any of the wiring. And that was going all the way around the loom, and was ended up soldering it into the indicator ones plugs that were up here. Left the plugs on, so if I do want to put the wing mirrors back on, I do have the indicators working on there as well. Now I'm going to turn off in a bit and take the nose cone off, then show you what's underneath all the nose cone. As you can see, there's a lot of wiring because of the H2 cooler and the pipes. I had to move where the blow-off valve was, which I'll show you because I've got a smart Turbo Smart 1, and I had to move the wiring a little bit, and there was a lot of trickery, pokery, and that's me throttle blipper, let me get it right, control unit, which is what was wired into the loom. Bit too close to the plug. No fault of the company that actually fitted it, it was more of the person that was working for them. They didn't do it as what the company told them to do, because the company is absolutely awesome with their electronic gear changes. You just have to make sure they're fitted correctly, and if you get a lot of vibration, then you have to make sure you try and fit it in the correct way. I do have a lot of these connectors, more for ease of use for disconnecting. These are for me electronic gear change to test, and you know, if there's any faults, which normally there isn't, I can test to see if any of these are wrong. Like some of them are going to be for blippers, some of them are going to be, like I've got a map switch on there, which is switches from one map to the other map on the gear change, so I can have like a wet and dry mode or just two maps depending on what I want. So the gear change isn't as harsh because I don't use a clutch for up or down. So you got some on like that. Then also I've got my push button gear changes. This is for going down the box, that's first gear. And then on the other side you have up the box, you go second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and then back down the other side for going down the box again. Now I've got them that way round. You can have both of them on this side where you got one and the other next to each other, but because I do a bit of racing and I'm used to it in racing as well, is inadvertently you could press the wrong button, you know, in a bit of a hurry. But on the road you should be fine, but because you shouldn't be particularly drag racing on the road, as we all say. So that's why I've done like that. It's called the race setup, really. This company also do pit lane limiters as well, and I'm thinking of trying to get them to design me a launch control facility. Now this bike does has launch control from the factory, but I want something that is a bit more gradual. That'll hopefully bring the RPM range in gradually, which most launch controls will just like keep it at say 6,000, 8,000, whatever you set it at, and then when you drop the clutch it goes onto full. Now because of my balance issues with the left leg amputee, I really would like something a bit more progressive, so I'm going to try and look to see if there's a way of doing that. Maybe someone who already has done it. If you know of any company that has done it, send me a message and I will look into it, because it will be very helpful for what I do, especially with this bike. This bike, we do a standing mile top speed event with this. Biggest problem with this bike, with particularly me, is because I keep my left leg on the foot peg to start with, because I can't lift it up afterwards because above knee. If it was below knee I could probably lift it up and get it on, just maybe, yeah. Is I have to have my right leg on the floor when I start. Now this bike will wheelie first, second, third, fourth off the throttle without even trying in first, second and third. Fourth it slowly comes back down. Now the problem with that is if it goes too high too quick, because you're trying to get a good start, it could go too high, unfortunately, because I can't get my foot on the peg quick enough to get the rear brake to control the height of the wheelie. I have to roll off a bit. Now these bikes, as a few people know, there's a lad on the H2 WhatsApp page saying they're very hard to control keep as a wheelie, because the throttle is a bit like a two-stroke on or off. You know, there's no gradual in between where you can sort of do a bit of a control. Now we have smoothed this one off quite a lot, and it's supposed to be almost like a jigsaw, the first three gears, except with 200 odd horsepower, 230 I think it is. I think he said first three gears, and then you go up to 300 near the end. Then what we will, I haven't had a chance to test it enough to be totally honest. I do have a thumb brake that I would like to fit to this, but it's whether I can get it to fit. Now the thing is, thumb brake will have to be mounted from there, and it needs to come out long enough to cope with thingy. Now the problem is with some of these, when you've got hydraulic clutch things, the pipes can get in the way, but this one doesn't look too bad. On my ZR40 it's crazy in the way. Now I might try and fit that once I've got everything off, just to see how it'll go. Now if these bars are too far dropped down, then obviously the thumb brake comes down and then it could catch your cockpit panel. I do have a set of these that I haven't fitted that are slightly taller. Now obviously, because they're more for, they did do them as a thing for people who are riding on the road more. Now I wasn't sure whether it was going to be too high and too much drag for doing top speed, but I might have to fit them, and then I might be able to get a thumb brake in. And if I get a thumb brake in, the only way I've got to try and figure it is, because it's ABS bike, I would like the ABS still to work with the thumb brake, but I would also like to keep the foot pedal. Now I'm not sure how I'm going to do that yet. Apparently people said there is ways of doing it without back pressuring each master cylinder. If anyone knows of a way of doing it, or know of a company that has parts that may help me do it, please get in touch again. Now, I think I've talked enough for this at the moment. I am going to get this nose cone off, and then I will get back to you a bit later. Thank you for watching. Hi, I'm back again, nose cone off. I nearly forgot to tell you about two 10mm bolts outside under the screen. So you have to take the screen off first, 6 bolts on the screen, and that will pull out, no problem at all. And then there's 2 bolts there, and then you've got plug for your headlamps. I think it's indicators or side light. No, it'll be because the indicator's not on the thingy. It'll be side lights. Side light the other side, and then you have this on like a little clipped in around the headlamp unit, which will need to be pulled out, or you could take the plug off, but I found it easy just to pull the rubber bung out. And now the headlamp come off with it, and this is what's behind it, obviously. A couple of control units, relay switch, relay boxes, and that. You've got your ECUs here, which is in the fairing, which is one part I'm going to have to change when I change the loom. And I've got all my USB devices for my various power commanders, which is all on this side, so you're going to have to take one panel off. That is for when we go to the diagnostic. The plugs come off, but it's for the diagnostic system and also the system for taking any restrictions off. I think they use the Woolwich where the garage I go to for my mapping. So they can take top speed restrictions off, adjust anything within the ECU basically, and that is he's wired that into that ECU, which unfortunately is going to have to do it to another ECU once I've thingy. But you have to buy a license for every ECU, so I have to buy another license for that new ECU. Got a relay box in there, which connects to the, I think it's the headlamp unit. Yes, the headlamp unit. But it keeps coming off on mine, so I've particularly just leave it floating around. Doesn't do any harm. Now on this side, as I was telling you, obviously the outer air ducts come off with mine, but there is bolts on yours, because all this is in the way. I've took the bolts that mount this air duct, you can see, just a couple out, so that basically mine just pushes in against the headlamp, against the the nose cone. But on your fairing, you will have a couple of bolts and brackets, which will hold all these plugs that are just sort of squashed in. Because they've got that many things in there. There's not much space on these H2s to put devices in like this. But as I say, I have 3 of them, and I'm going to have to wire all them into the new loom when I put the new loom in. So it's going to be a big job, the loom, but I'll get one loom out side by side and go from there. Yeah, I can see it's going to be a big job with all that. On your side panels, when you take them off, on this right hand side panel, the regulator rectifier is in there, so you have to, when you take the side panel off, you've got 2 plugs you have to take off on that side. As you see, they are colour coded, so there's no issues of putting them in the wrong way, unless you have an aftermarket regulator rectifier, because sometimes they're just black. But with the guide, the pin position guide on these plugs there, little nodule, they should be different on each one on one side, one on the other, so they shouldn't go into the wrong one. And on the other side, when you take the other side panel off, you have the radiator expansion bottle that's in the side panel, in the casing. So all you have to do is take that off, pull that off, the clip off, pull the pipe off. Now I've got Samco hoses because the silicone ones are easier to get on and off when you're constantly taking things on and off and all that. Yours might be a bit more difficult, so you might need a little screw or a screwdriver or a pry to just try and break the seal a little bit to get it off, given how long it's been on. Now I'm going to, this device will not be on yours unless you've got a H2 cooler. This is a link where it takes the power for the pump for the H2 cooler, comes off the plug. It's like an adapter lead plug for the headlamps. So we fit one end in one, and the other end back to the headlamps, and then this takes a power feed which then goes on that plug there to the water pump for the H2O cooler. But that will not be on a standard bike unless you have the, let's say, the same system on. Now I'm going to have to take all these clocks off as well. Apparently the clocks are different on the new loom I'm going to be fitting, and possibly even the ignition barrel, because that might be coded to ECU. Now on some Kawasaki's, I know on the ZR14s, well, and definitely the ZX10s, I'm going to find out on the ZR14 soon, but Kawasaki normally tell you, I think you have to change the ignition barrel with the ECU because it's coded. Now I've had experiences where I've not had to do that. I might be wrong, but I have experiences where I've managed to keep the same ignition barrel and it worked on the ECU. Now, how and why I do not know, but that's just one of those things. We'll have to see how things go. Right, I'm going to get off now, and I'm going to take the rear end off. As I was saying, I've got to get down to the ECU to get the loom out. So I'm going to take the rear end off. See, I need to get all these carbon out of the way so I do not damage anything. I need to wrap them up. There's a few over there now that needs wrapping. And I will be taking the air duct off here, and the air duct there. You will end up seeing the one end of the supercharger then from there. And then after that, the tank. And depending on the time is depending how much more I do. Okay, thank you for watching. We'll see you again soon. Hello again, back again. Now I've now got all the rear ends off, carbon fibre, and the light unit, and there is a metal brace there, which you see as that, which you have two bolts there, and then the side bolts up there. As I say, there's a lot of wire in here. That's my gear change. There's a lot of connections for various different things, obviously like pit lane, throttle blipper, and you have to go to various sensors and stuff to be able to do all that. And obviously fuses, main fuses to make it safe. So that was quite a tight fit. That all went in here where the original toolkit I think was. And then I have to try and get all the wiring to fit a bit better. At the moment it's the best I can get it, but I am going to try to make it even better again. As you see, I do have a full carbon fibre subframe. Now I've loosened all the bolts off of the tank. There's two there, two the other side, and two at the front, which holds the steering dampener on as well. And then the tank should lift off, and then you should just have a clip for the fuel line and one plug for the fuel pump and fuel gauge. But on this bike it's weird, it's not really a fuel gauge, it actually tells you how much fuel you've used. So the weird question is how much do you know what's left, especially if you don't fill the tank fully up. Yeah, well, that's another question that only Kawasaki can answer, really. So next bit is I'm going to get the tank off. I'm going to take the rear exhaust can off and the rear wheel off anyway, and the exhaust hanger because that's carbon fibre as well. Because when I put it back together, I will be putting my carbon fibre wheels back on, so that's going to have to come off anyway. So I'm going to do that. Also from the other side, as I was saying earlier, I took the supercharger duct off, which you can see there's a lot of wiring underneath there as well. Again, it's a bit of a thingy, and my gear change, electronic gear change, which is here, which we have three wires, one's on earth and one's for like up and down the box. Basically this works, it has electric coil at the top, electric coil at the bottom, and it has this arm that throws up and down depending which gear you go, which way you're going in the gear. Yeah, now you have to have that fitted at where my little finger's pointing, 90 degree to the arm, which is on there. Now a special one's been made for it, because if you don't get 90 degree, you get too much throw one way and not enough the other, and you may not get into either up or down the box. So that is quite vital. Obviously these are splined, so you can adjust that as well to be able to get a thingy, but ProShit have kindly made a nice billet bracket that bolts in part on the clutch slave cylinder there and there. The only thing is I can't run a cover for the sprocket cover, but really that shouldn't really matter considering I've got a big heavy electric solenoid in the way, so the chain's not really going to go anywhere except jam against that. And obviously these clutch covers on these are only plastic, so if it really wanted to come off it'll just shatter through that anyway. Underneath there you can see supercharger. There's plastic casing that's around there where you see there's one little Allen key and 3 10mm bolts. They will come off next as well, so we have more access to the, I've had to reroute the fuel line considering the H2 coolers, plenum as they call it, is a lot bigger than the standard one, and once that's off you will see this lovely billet plenum. So I will get off and then I'll get back to you again shortly. Yeah, as I've noticed now, I have a loose downpipe. I was only stripping it, I've noticed that. Now that seems to be cylinder number 1, 2, I think it's 3 or 2. 3, I think it is. Now what we've noticed, a bolt has come off basically from up there somewhere, if you can just about see it. Just right there at the top. See right there at the top anyway. Now that is going to obviously affect my power. Now whether that's happened on the dyno, if it has, then the close to 300 brake we had would be a lot more, because that would be escaping fumes straight away. So it will be interesting to get it back on the dyno. Right, I'm going to leave you now and carry on. I'm going to loosen the plenum off, get the plenum off, and get to the throttle bodies, have my tea, and then see what's what from there. Okay, I'll catch you up later. Hello, after a long, sweaty and wet few hour or so, I've got the top of the plenum off. That's the cooler where water comes through, or coolant comes through, depending on what you want to use. Depending on if you're racing, sometimes you don't not allowed coolant. Comes through, cools, boosts, blows through there into the airbox. I've loosened all the bolts off, that's loose except for got a couple of connections here to get off. One the side, one the other side, which is the in-feed and the out-feed to the cooler. Also, while I've been here, I thought, well, I'll take off the radiator and the cooler for the radiator, the external cooler, which I'll show you in a minute. I'll go over to the radiator and I'll show you how that was mounted. There was an in and out pipe again on the cooler side of things, and on the overflow you had a T-piece in. If you see it, there it is, one coming from the overflow of the pump for the cooler and one from the radiator to the expansion bottle. Underneath there you can see, as I've took the downpipes off, that one, which I think is number, which side are we on? Chain side, the opposite side, number 3, has been blowing. The bottom bolt was missing. So as you can see, soot everywhere, so that's going to basically sap a lot of power. And you can see it's black, so it's been running rich on there as well, which as the Americans say, lean means power, but the thing is, you go too lean, you burn things out. So I've took that pipes off, took the radiator off, so I thought, because of it's a messy job, and no matter how you try and put stuff underneath it, it gets everywhere. So I've done that tonight, so hopefully it'll be a bit drier tomorrow, and tomorrow I'm going to drop the oil and I'll start taking the top half off and have a look at what wiring needs to come off to be able to get the engine out. We're getting close, and also I'll probably take the front wheel off to give me a bit more easier access. That's pretty much it, but it's took a bit longer than normal because of finding spanners. There was a fancy little spanner which I'll show you now for doing those pipes, because sometimes they're a bit awkward. This was made by Extreme Creations. H2 cooler pipe. on a funny angle and size to get those pipes off. Without that, it's going to be a nightmare, so I really need not to lose that. Otherwise I'll be ringing them in Australia to try and send me another one. But also I might be speaking to him, well, I will be speaking to him in Australia about, as I took the thingy off, you can see the gasket, but at the bottom end here, I'm not sure whether it's going to need to be, it'll probably do, but I might see if I can get a couple of spares, because it's been off, on and off a few times. The radiator I brought over here, just sitting it on this oil can at the moment. Now obviously external will do the radiator, exhaust side of it, two fans, but on the outside you've got the other part of the cooler, where that gets cold air into it, and then that gets pumped around into the airbox to cool the boost pressure, which means the colder the boost pressure, the more you can tune it, because it does get mighty hot and you don't want to get it too hot, because as I say, things start breaking again. So anyway, that is it for tonight, and I'll catch up with you again. Thank you. System. Also, while I've been stripping it, I have noticed, as you can see, I've taken the rear wheel off,